Hello, welcome to Furious Driving, and today I'm seeing what happens when a brand like Alfa Romeo take a standard platform and get to sparkle their own magic over it. Yes, today I'm driving the Alfa Romeo Mito with a 1.4 TB engine in it. And if you like reviews of interesting and different cars, then please do hit the like and subscribe buttons. And now, on with the review. Hello, welcome to Furious Driving, and this little nugget of pretty small car Italian funness is an Alfa Mito, a Type 955 Alfa Romeo, if you will. Now, believe it or not, the Mito is based on the GM Fiat small car platform, which means it shares a lot of its underpinnings with the Corsa D and the Grande Punto. But with typical Alfa Romeo flair and style, they've taken those basic underpinnings and created something a lot more exciting and interesting in pretty much every way. Let's take a look around. Now, of course, the hard points of that platform are all fixed in stone. They couldn't change the A-post to C-post, that kind of stuff on the inside, but on the outside they can do what they want, and certainly with the face of the car, the bonnet, the bumper, the grille, they can make it absolutely an Alfa Romeo. So at the heart of it all, pun intended, is the Cuore Sportivo, the sporting heart, this grille at the front which has adorned every Alfa since forever, and of course the offset number plate, which very few cars in the Alfa range have managed to avoid. My 145 is a case in point, which I'm kind of disappointed about. I would much prefer it to have the offset number plate, which gives it so much more just character and weirdness. Also characterful and weird are these tall headlights. It's almost like they've taken a car headlight, turned it on its side vertical instead of horizontal, and whacked it in there. But with the height of the grille, the height of the bonnet line, obviously for pedestrian safety they have to raise the bonnet height on most small cars these days. It does work to fill that space and give it, again, more character. Around the back, there's little to associate it with its brethren on its platform. They've done a completely different styling, obviously, with the boot lid and the bumpers and things, but these tail lights are so fascinating. It's like the afterburners of a fighter jet with concentric LED rings for side lights, brake lights, and the indicator in the centre, making it quite a fun car to follow. Now, while there was only a couple of engine sizes, a 0.9 litre and a 1.4, there were a plethora of outputs, ranging from 85 horsepower with the basic 0.9 up to 155 on the 1.4 TB. There was also a 1.4 MPI, and this being a 1.4 TB but not one of the special editions, I think will be 120 horsepower. Now, climbing into the car, one of the first things you notice is this gorgeous, shiny door handle which pulls out to open. Not actually solid metal like it was in things like the 156, but it does look like solid metal. Now, as I've said on many occasions before, the absolute best colour for any car interior is red. It really does not get better than this, and these seats are just gorgeous. Lovely perforated red leather with the ribbed lines down the centre, and of course, most importantly, we've got the Alfa Romeo stitching off on the side. On some of the older and larger cars, this is in the centre, but here it's off to the side, and that nice little Alfa Romeo offsetting thing, which they do so well. And they are quite delightful sports seats as well, figure hugging bolsters to keep you in the seat on the corners, and a nice sturdy base underneath. Alfa Romeo leather is also generally incredibly good quality and lasts and lasts. We even have a red leather armrest in the centre, but naturally one of these fold-down armrests, as always, gets in the way of the handbrake. Let's climb in and look around. Now, look at the door card. First of all, lots of textured hard plastic for the bulk of it, but you don't touch that, so it doesn't matter. We do have a plastic door handle which looks like kind of shiny graphite-y metal, and around that is some fake carbon insert, making the car look very sporty indeed. There's more of this stuff around inside the car as well. Electric front windows, one touch on both sides, which is good, and electric mirrors. No electric rear windows because they're not opening windows. Now, a smallish little door cubby, but room for a cup or a bottle or something, and only one speaker in the door. Interesting. Now, let's climb in and look around what else we got. Well, firstly, the second speaker, the tweeter, is up in the A-post, and then we have maximum tea shelfery, carbon fibre tea shelfery. That means we eat our dinner in a hurry, we go and get ourselves an espresso coffee, balance it here up on the dashboard, neck it and run. That's the Italian way. But as we glance around, there are lots of beautiful little details that really separate this out from things like the Corsa and the Punto, but they don't have these fantastic traditional style eyeball vents, which are now embossed with a nice shiny chrome ring, which looks a little bit swank. Back into the centre, like Alfas of the last few years, we've got this nice cowled area, this time made of the fake carbon fibre, so looking kind of cool. And we've got 4 interlocking dials. That's quite a fun way of doing things. We've got the big speedo on the right and the big rev counter on the left, and then the fuel and temperature are interlocked with this little ridge of fake satin metal. And underneath that we have all of our warning lights. Alfa Romeo, blue and me, door open, all the important pertinent information. And the car drives away in the graphic as you turn it off. Isn't that cute? Like when Apple Macs used to let you set up a start up and shut down sound. I used to have This Is Your Host Jack Killian on a KJCM 98.4 FM. Good night America, wherever you are, on my MacBook Duo back in the day. Over to the right, we've got a few buttons for less important controls and a handy little bin. And moving back to the steering wheel, we've got a nice perforated leather. It's quite solid wheel. It's not soft and spongy at all. It's just firm but grippy, and it's not too large. There's a nice size of wheel. Got a phone radio controls and our Blue and Me Windows control. Kind of weird having that on, having a Windows button on a steering wheel, but that's the way it goes. And we do of course have the horn on there as well. Horn test. Extra parpy, maximum clearance, because Italians love to hoot at stuff. We do have an interesting quirk here. First of all, it turns up to turn the side lights on, but there's no second click for dip headlights. It just appears to go straight into dip headlights and side lights together. There's nothing in between as far as I can tell. And with the ignition off, each time you pull that, it resets or increases your follow me home headlights by increments of 30 seconds. So you can have your headlights follow you to your front door while you go into the house, and you can control how long it goes on for. Interesting quirk, and indeed feature. Okay, so moving down from the interesting eyeball vents, we have this silvery plastic which has got the radio in there, audio controls of course, and then down onto the heating and ventilation, single good zone climate of course. I think you have to go up to a bigger level of car really to get dual zone, or certainly a more modern one. And then a single cup holder. It's a really, really tiny thing. Really is literally an espresso cup holder and nothing more. And a storage cubby, which is just big enough to tuck a phone into, but not much more. Then significantly, we've got the DNA switch, dynamic, normal, and cold weather, which is what A stands for, obviously. This is how you set up the car's handling characteristics. Normal is, well, normal. A dulls the controls slightly, it gives you less response from the throttle, so if you're driving on snow and ice it's less likely to spin the wheels. There's a few other bits and pieces. And dynamic wakes the car up entirely, so you got sharper throttle response, sharper steering, tightens the steering up, and cars with a Q2 diff, that comes into play as well in D mode. Now, because we're a sporty car, we have got a manual gearbox, which is a very, very good thing, not a boring automatic. And check out the extra little details they've thrown at us. We've got a leather gaiter around it, not a plasticky thing. Got a nice leather gear knob, and underneath what is actually a smooth to the touch top, there is a diamond finish texture with the gear layout marked on top. All very good. Then underneath we've got a USB hookup for your Blue and Me mobile Windows stuff, which is dating this car quite badly now, and standard type 12-volt socket outlet, and then handbrake with a actually quite squeezy grip on it, very squeezy gripped handle. And moving our armrest down, we do in fact have fairly sizable stowage capacity in there, lots of room for Mars bars and the like. We'll move that back again because otherwise you can't take the handbrake off. We'll risk trying to get in the back, but I don't hold out much hope of actually fitting in there, because like in the Punto, once the seat goes back, I'm only just fitting in here. This is on the compact side, so my head is virtually touching the side of the roof. It's not a lot of elbow room, not a lot of knee room, but you know, if there's a short journey, it will be fine. In terms of amenities, we have got cup holders on the floor on both sides. We've got twin speakers, and we've got a moulded armrest in more of the fake carbon, and it does actually look rather swank back here with the red leather contrasting the black sides. Not like an off grey, just an actual black. And we even have coat hooks in the back as well. Access to the boot is by interesting means. You push the badge and it pops open. Not much room to get your fingers in there, but style is more important sometimes. Very, very high loading lip to get into the boot, so you've got to whick things, struggling, kicking and screaming into the back of the car. If you've got a small pug or something, this is quite good because you can put the pug in there and it can't escape. It's only 250 litres of space. There's not a massive amount of boot, but it's not a massive car either. If you need more space, the back seats will fold down, but it's only a one-piece folder, not a 60/40. And underneath there we have got a proper spare wheel. Maximum points Alfa, well done for putting a proper spare tyre in there, not some stupid inflatey thing that will leave you stranded. So that is the boot. It's a space where you put stuff. And in terms of dragging the boot down again, little cloth strap. Budget. Now, pulling away in normal mode. The car's got a fair bit of poke, but it doesn't have a huge amount of pizzazz. So I'm just going to nick it into D mode and see what happens. Orange light has come on. Just drop down to third. Wow, suddenly the car is an utterly different animal. The engine is more responsive, the steering is far lighter. The brakes even feel sharper, but that might just be my imagination. The steering is actually light to the point of twitchy now. The gearbox, I assume, is the same unit they'll put into the Punto and into the Corsa, but it does feel extremely light and very little resistance at all, and very simple to slot between gears as well. Shall we do 0 to 60? I think we shall. Oh look, an E30. That's nice. Well, that's 60 a couple of seconds ago. That's quite rapid. I'm guessing this car is hotter than I imagined it was. Now, when this car came out in 2008, it was a vital car for Alfa Romeo, like most cars are for Alfa Romeo. They don't have the leeway to not pull their weight on every single model, and every single model seems to be the one that's going to save the company or cripple the company one way or the other. Because Alfa hadn't had a small car in the range for a long time. In fact, the smallest thing that had in the range for a while was the 147, which had replaced the 145/146. They'd not had a car below that size category for, well, ever really. They had nothing competing in the very profitable Super Mini category. This car had to be a winner. It added just such a touch of class, style, sportiness, Italian flair to that whole category of vehicles, which just was really kind of lacking. The Mini Cooper and the Swift Sport, for example, could be argued that they drive a little better, but as good as the Mini looks, it's not got the Italian sparkle, and the Swift Sport really does lack the Italian flair as well. There's lots of other cars in those categories as well, but those two stand out particularly well. Now, interestingly, as you work through the DNA system, the car's ride does noticeably change as well. It's not just the performance, the car seems to tense up a little bit, but even when riding in normal mode, it's fairly stiff, fairly taut, in a way that the Vauxhall and the Fiat just aren't quite the same. This does have that sporting feel about it, because even though this is built on the GM Fiat platform, it is at its heart still an Alfa Romeo. Now, when it comes to doing this review, I have to admit to be a little bit biased. I'm a paid-up Alfisti, so I'm always going to be looking through slightly rose-tinted glasses at whatever Alfa have put out. Although I am a realist as well, and I accept there are many, many shortcomings in their cars. So I know that a Swift Sport will probably outdrive this on a twisty road. And a Mini Cooper is probably better built. However, there is still that same dynamic connection that you get with an Alfa that you just don't get with other brands. It tugs at the heartstrings in ways that you can't really put into words or explain. Now we're driving along fairly sedately, we're in normal mode, we're keeping up with traffic. There's a little bit of tyre noise because it has got quite chunky wheels on the thing for a fairly small car. It's sedate, it's relaxing, the seats are comfortable, the leather is soft but the padding is firm underneath. They do hold you nice and tight. Visibility is really quite good considering how thick these A-posts are. Looking back though, the rising window line does mean looking at the rear quarter is a little trickier. I do find this dashboard just a little bit high to kind of see over. It's almost like a big cliff face blocking your vision of the windscreen, which is a long, long way away over there. However, the steering wheel is a nice size. It feels quite large, but the leather feels good in your hands, and the pedal position is very good as well. Although typically Alfa, I do feel my knees are just a little bit bent when I've got my arms at the right length. But you know, it wouldn't be an Alfa if they weren't doing that. One rather fun little distraction I found is the turbo bar readout, a bar graph of the bar pressure, if you will, on the dashboard. So as you drop a gear, you see the bar graph increasing slightly. Now the engine note is another sporty aspect of this car which surprises you with its depth and range. It's a 1.4, which these days is relatively large for such a small car. It does give it a decent amount of torque, so as well as just horsepower for high-end speed, you've got the grunt for low-end acceleration and easy low-end acceleration, not just forced, thrashed kind of power. It's just a ready supply of the stuff. It does make it a more relaxing drive when you're going through the twisties or having to go for an overtake. So you can dispatch a slow-moving vehicle with ease. In fact, I always want something else to overtake now. Come on, get me on the tractor. Now, when this car was discontinued in 2018, it did once again leave Alfa with nothing small in the range. In fact, Alfa's current range is excessively diminished. They've really only got one car in it. And that's sad, because this was a great car for Alfa to get younger people who weren't after a big saloon or a supercar or a coupe into one of their cars. It was a great way of expanding the brand to a different category of people who might move into a bigger car later or a fast car later. Or even people who are moving down later on in life who didn't want a big saloon anymore either. So by not having a Mito sized car, they really are missing out on a huge number of sales. So I do hope they can sort something else out again soon in the near future. But then Fiat are looking pretty slim in their pickings as well. Basically 500 based offerings these days. They need another Punto. Now the naming convention of the Mito is interesting in its own right. It's a portmanteau, which I've said previously is my favourite word of all time, which means a mashup of words of Milano and Torino, Milan and Turin, the Mito. But it wasn't going to be. It was going to be called the Furiosa after they did a competition across Europe to name the new small car. And that name Furiosa played well in most countries, apart from Spain, where it absolutely tanked for some reason. So they had to go back to the drawing board. And it was going to be called Junior as well at one point, as in a hark back to the old Alfa Romeo Juniors, meaning the smallest engine in the range, if not the smallest body. But no, Mito won. And those two towns, Milan and Turin, being where it's designed and built respectively. And when you're driving down the road in one of these things, it's the little touches that make it just feel so special. These double action air vents are nice to touch, they feel really solid. And you look at the dials and you've got the Alfa Romeo script on your rev counter, and that's above the word Giri, meaning RPM. You've got benzina instead of petrol, or fuel aqua instead of water. It makes it feel like you're driving something a bit exotic, a bit special. Forget the fact it's related in any way to a Corsa. This is an Alfa Romeo. And even driving not particularly quickly following a large SsangYong, having it in dynamic mode does just make the car feel like it wants to go. It wants to be free to do what it wants to do. So in conclusion, in this particular case, the Mito is more than the sum of its parts. It may well have a platform shared with two other cars, but this is the most interesting and individual of the three. And saying it's a bad thing to be sharing with those cars is a misconception, because they are good cars in their own right. The Grande Punto, for example, is an excellent little car. Adding the extra Alfa Romeo sparkle of the extra interior bits and the red leather and all the other driving and handling characteristics makes it even better. So if you've enjoyed this, please, as always, do hit like and subscribe, and join me again next time driving something completely different.